issues. So hopefully we'll get over that soon. All right, I'm Misha. I'm just a real world woman, a real human being like the rest of you who was suffering. And when doctors and nutritionists and everyone were not able to help me, I found a way to help myself. And the surprising thing was that all of these conditions that I talk about were many of the things that I was suffering with. So sleep apnea is one. I suffered with sleep apnea enough that in a sleep study, they found that I was waking up 60 times an hour. So, we're going to talk about sleep apnea today, the relationship to insulin resistance, and how important it is, and how you can easily address both symptoms of it, or both diseases of disorders of sleep apnea and insulin resistance. So, with that 60 times an hour, it meant that I wasn't getting any sleep. I didn't even really realize in the beginning that I had sleep apnea. We suspected it, or my family did. I snored all the time. I would gasp for air when I was sleeping, and people were terrified when they were around me because sometimes they thought I just wasn't going to wake up and breathe again. So, is anybody joining in right now? Do they suffer with sleep apnea? Have you had similar experiences? Has anybody ever had a sleep study done because of their poor sleep habits? If you have, just put study in the chat so I know you've had a sleep study done. Mine was interesting, and yeah, Tina, I see you. It was interesting because I wasn't prepared to hear that I woke up basically once every minute, which it dramatically explained why I was having such poor energy and health during the day. If you haven't heard enough from me, one of the things I want you to understand is that sleep is extremely important. It's one of the cheapest, easiest things that we can all do to better our health, and yet we're missing it. And some of us are missing it because of sleep apnea and feeling like we don't know what to do, and how to get good sleep is just impossible in the state we're living in. So if that's you, just hit the tab, give me some hearts so I know that you're hearing this. Now, sleep apnea and insulin resistance. One of the things, and we're going to get into this in just a minute, that I was told is that I had a fat tongue. Well, yeah, I was obese. I was at least 50 pounds heavier than I am. I think when I had the sleep study, I was closer to a little bit over 60 pounds heavier than I am now. I was obese. I knew I was, but I was also working out daily. I didn't feel like I ate that horribly, but obviously I did. Um, and so their solution was to cut a slit in the back of my tongue and inject chemicals into it to dissolve the fat so my tongue wouldn't be so big and obstruct my airway when I sleep. That was pretty I was actually, at the time, because I knew nothing about insulin resistance, I was actually curious about doing that to improve my sleep quality. Well, what if I show you why that fat tongue is happening? And it's not just about this obesity across the body, but why you're getting the fat tongue and how you can get that to calm down so it's not obstructing your airway, so that that's going to help with sleep apnea. But there's also some other mechanisms. So hang tight, because here we go. First off, I want to talk about insulin resistance. Okay, so those of you who are interested, insulin resistance, in short, is just when your body doesn't respond to insulin, a hormone that helps control your blood sugars. And when this happens, your body makes more insulin to try to keep up. And that excess insulin can cause problems, especially with how your body stores fat. And not just the jiggly fat that's all around the body, but the fat under your tongue and in your throat. Um, I'm super cold today, you guys. All right, so sleep apnea is when you stop breathing for short times while you're asleep. The interesting thing is, and I'm not going to cover it so much today, but there is a nerve disruption. And we talked about that a little bit yesterday with neuropathy and edema. That nerve disruption can make you stop breathing even when you're awake. So if you're noticing that you just stop breathing when you're awake, then you're probably doing it when you're asleep. And there's a lot of issues as to why. Trauma definitely builds in, but we're going to talk about insulin resistance today and how that's causing some of your sleep apnea. So, insulin resistance, your body's not responding well to glucose, and And now you're starting to experience other problems, and here's why. Um, Wow, I have the same note like 3 times in here, so it's throwing me off, you guys. All right. So there was a study that shows that obese patients with sleep apnea or OSA had significantly larger tongues with higher percentages of tongue fat compared to obese individuals without OSA. At the end of the line, what they're saying is insulin resistance is causing visceral fat accumulation. And so the people with sleep apnea who had these fat tongues actually also had high levels of insulin resistance, contributing to that fat growing in their tongue, which contributed to the airway being blocked, which contributed to my waking up 60 times an hour. That's pretty crazy, right? How many of you guys have ever thought that the size of your tongue bed was causing you to have sleep problems? Or did you ever know that diabetes or insulin resistance, the precursor to diabetes, could cause not only the rest of your body to get heavy, but your tongue bed to get so fat that it decreases your sleep quality. Has anybody ever recognized that's a thing? Because I didn't know that my tongue bed was fat. My tongue was my tongue. So how many of you guys didn't ever understand that your tongue bed could get too fat for you to sleep? And that insulin resistance causes this accumulation of visceral fat in the tongue. So we often think about visceral fat as being from like the neck down to the groin, underneath the muscle wall of the belly, and that visceral fat is there to cushion and warm and take care, give energy to all of our organs. But it also, science is showing, builds up in the back of your throat and especially in your tongue. That's one big reason for sleep apnea. Get that tongue bed thinned down by increasing your insulin sensitivity, stopping the excess storage of visceral fat in your tongue, and your sleep quality may just improve. Now, those of you who've been to sleep doctors, those of you who have had sleep problems, have had sleep studies, has anybody ever had their doctor tell them, address your insulin resistance? We can address the size of your tongue bed and your sleep quality can get better. Has anybody ever had that happen? Or has nobody ever told you that? So put a 1 in the chat. Yeah, there you go, Tina. Nobody's ever said that, right? What do they give you a CPAP. For me, the CPAP didn't work because it was just forcing that tongue back into my throat, effectively causing a seal, and then I would wake up even more. So sleep apnea, the uh, CPAP just didn't work for me because of this condition. So that's pretty interesting. So that your CPAP is causing you to wake up more and it feels, and it didn't matter where they put the oxygen levels or how the settings were tweaked, it still was happening. So I just ended up not using it because I felt like not only do I have something strapped to my face, but now I'm waking up gasping for air even harder because of this excess pressure pushing my tongue into my throat. So there's a couple of things that happen with sleep apnea. All right. So outside of the tongue bed being fatter and that happening, the insulin resistance causing that tongue bed to be thicker, OSA is characterized by repeated episodes of upper airway collapse during sleep, leading to intermittent hypoxia, lack of oxygen, and sleep fragmentation, meaning your sleep is just broken up all night long. And so these episodes can trigger, um, I keep losing my notes. These episodes can trigger, you guys, I am all kinds of out of sorts today. So let's slow down. So OSA, repeated episodes of upper airway collapse during sleep, leading to intermittent hypoxia or lack of oxygen, and broken sleep trigger a cascade of physiological responses that can exacerbate insulin resistance. So intermittent hypoxia activates the sympathetic nervous system. And we know when we activate the sympathetic nervous system, we're increasing cortisol. Oh my goodness. And now my music is going crazy. It's like every atom of electronics and technology is just messing with me this week. Okay. So intermittent hypoxia, lack of oxygen, activates the sympathetic nervous system, increasing cortisol. But it also increases catecholamine release. And this sympathetic overactivity has been shown to impair insulin sensitivity, or, in other words, increase insulin resistance by increasing liver glucose production, by reducing glucose uptake in peripheral tissues, all the little tissues that need it, and by promoting lipolysis or fat breakdown, which increases circulating free fatty acids. And these effects collectively contribute to the development and progression of insulin resistance. So it's not only that insulin resistance is causing some sleep apnea, the sleep apnea then is worsening insulin resistance. We talked about this yesterday with neuropathy and edema. Now we have this loop, this feedback loop, negative feedback loop that's making you sicker, and each condition is making the other one worse. And you're not getting answers as to how to get it better, right? Does anybody feel like that? Like all the stuff that they give you for sleep apnea just isn't working and you're still not sleeping and getting the rest you need? Does anybody feel like that? Because that's how I felt. I felt like I just honestly, by the time I found the system that I do, I just had given up on the medical community. I had been to so many doctors, done so many things, and nobody was helping. So look, that lack of oxygen when you sleep can make your body produce those stress hormones. So we're just going to simplify it. And that can make insulin resistance worse. The inflammation can caused by both sleep apnea and insulin resistance can make both of them worse. And the inflammation is not only making it harder for you to sleep, but it's making it harder for insulin to work properly. So when you're not getting enough sleep, you're increasing inflammation and increasing the likelihood of any of these diseases or disorders happening with you. So, and that extra fat, remember we talked about the fat oxidation and the free fatty acids. So what that really means is that the extra fat in your body can produce hormones that mess with your hunger signals and your breathing control. So now if your hunger signals aren't shutting off and you're eating more, you're increasing your insulin resistance, and then you're not sleeping well, increasing your insulin resistance, and that increased insulin resistance is increasing your sleep apnea. No wonder everybody's struggling and confused, and yet you're given a CPAP machine. Has anybody ever been prescribed medications for their sleep apnea? Is to see a physician. So I'm well, yeah, I definitely agree that people should see a physician, but if you're like me, I worked for physicians for years. I worked with physicians. I had a physician as a roommate. We did the Golden Girls thing for a while, and not one of those caught this or was able to address it. So yeah, they helped me understand that I had sleep apnea. They helped me understand that I had a fat tongue, but not one of them gave me a real way to address it or overcome it. So we need to be a little bit more self-advocating. And when we understand that our food today and the environment we live in that's causing this metabolic disorder, this metabolic crisis that the world is having, then we have to understand we have to take some things into our own hands and understand that addressing that for the hope of addressing these other things and helping is actually the way we should be going. So when I went to my doctor, I had so many symptoms that they were scattered, looking everywhere. And here's the thing, most physicians are not taught about insulin resistance, um, and so they don't talk to you about it. So I'm giving people options. I'm not delaying care to physicians. So anyway, back to this. So now we have this extra fat that can produce hormones that mess with your hunger signals and your breathing control. And then you're having nerve disruptions from insulin resistance that can damage your nerves over time. And I went into detail about how insulin resistance is damaging your nerves yesterday when neuropathy and edema, remember? So this effect on the nerves controls your breathing and your throat muscles, and that can relax them from activating properly, disrupting even more of your breathing pattern. This is so even when I was awake, I would halt breathing because my nerves weren't functioning properly. And if I sometimes I would just catch myself like, oh wow, I haven't breathed in more than 60 seconds, or it felt like I was holding my breath when my nervous system just wasn't activating, telling me to breathe. And that we find was related to insulin resistance. Once I got the insulin resistance under control, those patterns started to normalize. My sleep got better. I now sleep through the night. I don't have to have a sleep machine. I don't have fat tongue anymore. I don't have any of those conditions. So stumbling on insulin resistance, addressing my insulin resistance is what got my sleep apnea better. And there are hundreds of people who are doing the same. I have story after story of people who suffered with sleep apnea, who simply started the system after visiting their physicians for all these years, and then they got it addressed by addressing their food. So that's where we're going to stand with that. All right. So, oxidative stress and inflammation, recurrent episodes of this oxygen deprivation and then reoxygenation. So, you're like stopping breathing and then you're gasping for breath in OSA, generate oxidative stress and promote systemic inflammation. And this chronic low grade inflammation, characterized by elevated levels of pro inflammatory cytokines, interferes with insulin signaling pathways, and specifically those pro-inflammatory cytokines, if anybody cares, are TNF-A and IL-6. So another study demonstrated that intermittent hypoxia induces pro-inflammatory phenotype in visceral adipose tissue, with increased M1 macrophage polarization correlating with the degree of insulin resistance. So the more insulin resistance it was, the people were, the more visceral fat and the more of these M1 macrophages were there. So when we have insulin resistance, it's also changing the visceral adiposity and leading to a dysregulation of adipokine secretion. So we're going to simplify that in a second. All this means is that it's changing how your fat deposits and acts in your body because of insulin resistance, and that change is affecting your sleep apnea. Okay, so it's also, as we just kind of talked about, changing the way your neurons signal, the way your neural pathways signal, and that slows down your ability for your body to tell yourself to breathe. So whether you're awake or asleep, you're having problems because those neural pathways have been impacted. And that is a great cause besides the fat tongue as to why you're having sleep problems, because you're just not breathing. So your body's continually waking itself up, increasing these sympathetic nervous system hormones to get you awake so that you can breathe, so that you don't die. So your body's going through this constant phase of relax, wake up, relax, wake up. And so why are you tired in the morning? It's like you're constantly being poked all night long. You're just like poked all night long. Every time you start to sleep, you get poked. There's a tiger coming, there's a bear coming, wake up and get ready to run. And then you got to go back to sleep. And then it happens over and over. 60 times an hour it was happening for me. By the way, no physician ever explained any of this. Nobody ever said anything outside of use a CPAP, cut a hole in your tongue. That's what the physicians told me. So I advocate for you going to see your doctor, but I also advocate for you understanding that our food is causing 95% of our problems today. And if we start there, if we start with addressing our food or in tandem with going to a doctor, we have a better chance of regaining health than just simply by taking a medication, having a CPAP thrown on. Am I saying don't do those things? No, I'm not. I'm just saying start to address the real root cause as you're working on it and see what can happen with your health. So again, this is all really bidirectional. Sleep apnea is making insulin resistance worse. Insulin resistance through a number of pathways is making your sleep apnea worse, and you're just getting sicker and sicker, and you're not getting real solutions from the people you're trusting right now. So let's start making change in your health, right? Anybody else frustrated with the medical care they get and the inability to get real answers and real counseling on your health, instead just being having these other medications and stuff being thrown at you that really are masking symptoms but not addressing the root cause? Because what we're here to do is to address the root cause to help you have a healthier, more productive life. And I think most of us want that. Most of us are sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. We just want to feel better. So this this information I'm giving you is simple, it's sustainable, it's all about our daily lives and how that's causing us to be sick and tweaks that we can make to start living healthier. That's what this is really about. So, this whole thing with sleep apnea and insulin resistance is a vicious cycle. Um, the therapeutic implications for this, understanding this intricate relationship between insulin resistance and OSA, um, can help you start to address the insulin resistance in a much easier and more positive way. Again, do the therapies your doctor's talking about, do what he says, but also understand that if we go start taking some control of our health by addressing what's wrong with our diet that caused this whole thing in the first place, we can start to feel better. Maybe one day you don't need a CPAP. That's me. James is another one. Uh, Cindy was one, Maria was one, Jason is one. So those are all people who had sleep apnea, who have overcome it, not had to take CPAP, their CPAP everywhere with them anymore, not had to worry about that, not had to take medications by addressing insulin resistance. Am I saying that it's going to work for everyone? No. But if you make some simple tweaks to your diet without impacting having more medications and more equipment, and it works for you, would that be amazing? Because that's what this is really about. All right. So, those that fat tongue thing, you guys, that scares me. That injecting more chemicals when we're already overloaded with toxins in our system to address something that we could really easily address by understanding the insufficiencies in our food. Okay. So we understand that treating sleep apnea might help with insulin resistance. Improving insulin resistance can help with sleep apnea, and losing weight, especially the weight that's in your belly that insulin resistance is driving, can help both conditions. So the less of that belly fat we have, the more sensitive our tissues are to insulin, and the less. By the way, when that visceral fat is in and around your belly, if your tongue is fat, blocking off your airway, can you imagine what's happening when the rest of your lungs and your intestines and your stomach and your heart are all impacted by all this excess fat that was there to protect it and is now killing those organs off? Insulin resistance is driving that visceral fat accumulation. And remember, it doesn't just get to expand like subcutaneous fat, it's held in under that wall of the muscle. So now it's compressing, making it even more uncomfortable to breathe and more uncomfortable to sleep. So, yes, absolutely addressing insulin resistance. I'm not saying it's going to cure sleep apnea, but I'm saying that it's going to help. And it just possibly could reverse your sleep apnea like it has for me by reducing that fat in your belly, by increasing your nerve pathway signaling, by reducing the fat in your tongue, all of those things. Insulin resistance can affect your sleep apnea getting better by becoming more insulin sensitive and allowing all of these things to work better in the body. That's not damaging information. That's liberating information. That's health bearing information. Okay. So, how many of you guys feel like you've never been told any of this? You didn't understand any of this? That does anybody feel like they learned? This is kind of short, but has anybody learned anything new about their sleep apnea? Does anybody have a different perspective on their sleep apnea and how they could address it or help address their sleep apnea? Just put me in the chat if you feel like you've gotten a little bit of information to better understand what's happening with you, because that's important to me, that you guys are able to take care of it. So it's like the human body is very delicate in some ways, but it's very resilient in some ways. So it's like me saying, I have a flat tire and only a mechanic can fix my tire. I can change my own damn tire. Okay. Not every woman can, I get that. But I have the knowledge to do it. Does that mean I'm damaging my car by changing my tire when it's flat alongside the road? No. Does it mean that I am damaging my car by knowing what kind of fuel to put in it, or that it needs an oil change, or that it needs any of these things to run effectively? No. That's all we're talking about, is giving your body ways to run effectively so that we're not suffering with all these diseases and disorders. You have just now in your 50 years of life need to know about all of this. Yeah, so it creeps up on us, right? And unfortunately, women, it hits us harder because we have this big hormonal shift, between 40 and 50, and then it continues to get worse after 50. And that hormonal shift in our sex hormones is impacting our insulin hormones, and there's a number of other things. And so it's like for us women with this huge hormonal shift, we start to see all of these things: edema, neuropathy, sleep apnea, migraines, skin tags, skin discoloration, joint problems, memory problems, all of that because we have this huge shift in hormones. So before I continue with the sleep apnea, I want to drop this. When we have that shift in hormones and our body's already slowing down a lot of the hormones that we produce, if we're insulin resistant, that insulin resistance is also dampening our production of these hormones. So, an insulin resistant woman in menopause will struggle more than a woman who's not insulin resistant because now all of the hormones are being impacted, not just the insulin, not just the ghrelin and the um, leptin and the cortisol, but your thyroid hormones and your estrogen and testosterone levels. You had a full hysterectomy in 2013 to have no female hormones and cannot take replacements. Okay. Whew. So hysterectomy, yeah. Unfortunately, they push hysterectomies a lot, and I am not a big proponent of them for that reason. So you can't take hormones to help. That makes me want to go research because it's not an area of knowledge for me. Ways that you can use food to help increase those hormones for you. Now, I was listening to Dr. Mindy Pels. If you want to know dietary changes that may help increase your hormones, listen to her. She's actually really great with women's health to help you get those hormone levels up. If you're simply not producing them, then there's a whole cascade of other things happening, and that's why hysterectomies can be life-saving, but they can be also very damaging, and I think they've been pushed way too much. And you're living proof of that. You're on blood thinners. So that's another talk too. So we can talk another day about how insulin resistance is changing the viscosity of your blood, and then you're having to be on blood thinners more. I'm going to write that down, blood viscosity, so I can talk about it sometime. Because all these pieces are so important. Like, you guys, here's the thing though. When I started, I didn't know any of this, right? I had been working with doctors. I had gone to doctors and had lab tests. I had urine tests. I had blood tests. I had saliva tests. I had CAT scans and MRIs and X-rays and all this stuff to try and figure out what was going on with me. And I wasn't getting better. And my primary doctor actually called me in and said she was terrified that if I didn't get something changed, that I wasn't going to make it to be 65. And then I stumbled on the system and started understanding insulin resistance. None of the doctors I worked with daily talked to me about it. None of them explained it. In fact, doctors called me into the office and said, after all those tests, there was nothing they could do to help me. That's why I'm here talking about this, because how many of you guys feel like that? Like your doctors are running around, and I'm not bashing doctors. They're doing the best they can with an overload of patients and oftentimes not enough information, and they're trying to treat you and make you better. And then 5 minutes later, there's another person come in with another health complication, and they're just overloaded. But how many of you feel like you just didn't get the right answers, or the answers you got were not improving your health? They were like prolonging, but they weren't improving your health. Has anybody else felt like that? Put a 1 in the chat for me if you felt like all these healthcare professionals were prolonging, masking symptoms, but not making you better. Because that's definitely how I felt. And I've kind of been this off the rails person my whole life anyway. So this isn't anything new for me that I want to talk about insulin resistance. And actually, doctors like Dr. Bickman, who wrote this book, Why We Get Sick, are going around educating doctors on all of these things, right? Lady girl, lady finger, lady girl, that's not the right name for you. Jenny, okay, good. So definitely it's been going on for 23 years. I actually had a conversation yesterday with someone that was interested in what I do. And We talked about how in our time, in our era, PCOS was not diagnosed, and we just had to suffer with it, right? PCOS started being diagnosed after I finally had children and figured it out on my own a little bit, but there's so many things. You guys, here's the thing, and I so this might piss some people off, but I'm gonna give you a couple of truths. Physicians are offered one nutrition course in school. 80% of physicians opt out of that course. Less than 20% of physicians take one nutritional course in their entire time. They're so focused on cellular function and all of these other, and microbiology and all of these things, that they just don't feel they have time for the nutrition. But the flaw in all of this is that our nutrition is the biggest piece that's causing all of this cellular malfunction in our body. So here in the US, it's doing our doctors a disservice that they're not learning about nutrition. They're not learning about how food is increasing insulin, and insulin is interacting with all of these other disorders, and that there could be a better way to treat patients than just throwing medications at them. That maybe understanding that our food being flawed, being manufactured, being modified has changed so much that our bodies are struggling to keep up with how to deal with this imperfect food we eat. You came to Florida from New York, met someone who has been guiding you through proper nutrition. Amazing. Through food. Yes. So let's talk about that. Food in today's world, like we go to the grocery store, I would say, and put a 2 in the chat if you agree with me, that less than a third of the grocery store is actually organic raw food. 2/3 of the food and I have not done a real calculation, but my perception is at least 2/3 of the food in the grocery store is packaged. It's been processed. Um, they strip the fiber out, and then fiber's been a big thing, so then they start putting fiber back in and saying it's high in fiber when it's not really high in fiber. It just has more fiber than the product sitting next to it. But fiber is important because it's the thing that helps regulate the blood sugars and the blood sugar spikes that are causing the insulin spikes that are causing this visceral fat accumulation and this neural pathway disruption, right? So if we can go back to that and understand that fiber is one of the key things missing, then we can start to have a very simple pathway back to health. But we have to understand that our foods today have been, even our organic foods have been depleted of the fiber that they're supposed to have. I will do a talk. I don't know when I'll do a talk. Maybe I'll do one tomorrow afternoon, and I'll show you some graphics on the food and how it's been changed, if that would be helpful. But what I want you to understand is that what we see in the supermarket is not what was grown traditionally. It's been changed because as consumers, we want bigger, better, juicier, more tasteful things. So our peaches went from the size of my iPod case. Our peaches went from about the size of that to the size of my fist. And how did that happen? They had to strip fiber out, pump up fructose, glucose in, and in some cases, like potatoes and whatnot, starches to make it bigger, better, and more visually exciting for us. And then when we bite into it, guess what? It's sweeter because fiber is a little bitter and it's a little harder to chew. It's not as sweet and tempting and juicy. So we start to remove the fiber even from our organic foods through genetic modification. And now our foods are not delivering the protection we need from the sugar that's in them. So last night, I also received a text from a woman who finally got her husband on the system, and he's had heart problems, blood pressure problems. His blood pressure in 1 month is already starting to normalize, but he was having some chest pain. Now, look, doing these things is not going to change 20 years of damage overnight. You guys have to understand that this gentleman probably had 20 to 30 years of damage to his heart. The simple system I'm talking about is not going to cure that in a month or a week. So yeah, he still experiences some heart problems. So she said they were treating it with fruit. Fruit, 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 fruit. Fruit is high in fructose. The only place that can really um, deal with the sugars from fruit is your liver. When your liver gets impacted, remember that process of the liver slowing down. I talked about that a little bit ago, how that can impact your insulin resistance and your sleep apnea. So, excessive amounts of fruit when you're already insulin resistant and having problems is not the way to go. Am I saying you can't have fruit? No. But it has some vitamins and minerals in it. Yeah, sure, it does. But the amount of sugar that we're getting in today's fruit is damaging our livers. It's why we have so many kids with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, predominantly from fruit juice that's basically the fruit stripped of the little bit of fiber that's left, and now we have fructose in sugar form. Yeah, you're getting some vitamins and minerals, but you're getting a whole lot of stuff that's really damaging your liver. And now we understand that that damaged liver can disrupt our sleep patterns, or I hope you do a little bit, like a very over above view of this, but understand that your damaged liver and your liver not functioning properly is causing a cascade of problems that disrupt your sleep and make you more insulin resistant, furthering the problem. Okay. So fruit is not necessarily the best way to treat it. Now, do I love like blueberries and raspberries? Raspberries are my favorite, and pears, yes, but I choose those fruits because they are higher in fiber and lower in sugar than some of the other fruits. My grandson still eats oranges. We have apples every fall. Am I saying don't do it? No. But I'm saying when we feed ourselves nothing but fruit all the time, for most of us, some people think they thrive on it. That's good. But when we do that, we're really overloading our liver when we don't have enough fiber. And I've had pescatarians, vegetarians who buy everything from um, the farmer's market down the road from them, and they don't buy anything at the grocery store, and they don't buy boxed, bagged stuff, and they prepare all their foods, or they eat most of their foods raw, and they still were sick and they were still having problems with blood glucose. Why? Why? Why would that be? Because our foods have been changed so much that it's damaging us. So, this protocol that I'm going to talk about right now actually helps fill in those gaps that have been created in our food today. So, I'm totally an advocate of you doing what's best for your body as far as nutrition. I'm also an advocate of just personally, this is my personal opinion, that the eat right for your blood type thing is real. I'm a no positive person. I'm more carnivore. I eat meat, and actually I didn't eat a lot of red meat for years because we were all told it was so bad. But I have one serving of red meat every day now, and my health is improving. Amazing. There are some people who that wouldn't work for them. Maybe the A, B, or B types need more like a Mediterranean or vegetarian diet. Absolutely. Do that. Do what's best for you, but understand that the food that we get as an overarching overall picture is not as perfect as it used to be. And we need to address those imperfections in order to allow our bodies to utilize the fuel. So, this is kind of really inflammatory, but I'm going to say it this way, this analogy. So if I have my beautiful SUV that's sitting downstairs and I go to the gas station and I'm like, hey, you know what? I've heard really good things about diesel. I'm going to put diesel in my tank today. It's going to destroy my car, right? Or if I had a diesel truck and I'm like, hey, diesel's expensive. And so there's this other fuel source called gas, and I'm going to put that in my diesel truck. And that's going to be great. Yeah, you're going to blow the engine up in a really broader sense. That's kind of what's happening in our bodies. We're not getting the right fuel in our body because of all these deficiencies in manufacturing and modification that cause us to be sick. So when we have insulin resistance and we have this thing, by the way, I haven't explained this. When we have insulin resistance, a couple of things happen. The foods we're eating are so high in sugar that it's just flushing through our system. I used to have really bad IBS. I didn't understand that sugar was what was causing the IBS. It's running through my system, right? My small intestine is soaking up all the sugar it can, but as it's soaking up all the sugar and everything else is passing through really quickly, I'm nutrient deficient. Now I'm getting sick. There are many, many doctors who've talked about the fact that our food looks foreign to our bodies today. So enough of that. How do you fix it? How I fixed it, and I'm going to explain why, is through two simple products that comprises one system. So the simple products are this: a tea that I have every morning. It's in my mug right now, and I drink it again in the afternoon. And then a pre-meal drink that I have before my meal with the most carbohydrates in it. Some days I only have one of these. Most days I have a couple because at 60, I'm really concerned with my gut health. So why are these working? Let's talk about it. Well, with the balance, one of the things that's happening is that it's giving your gut back the fiber it needs to in order to deal with the blood sugars that are dampening your neural pathways, and it's helping with the cholesterol buildup that's slowing down your blood flow, and that slowed blood flow and impacted blood flow is actually causing more of this nerve damage that we talk about. So the fiber helps with that, but it also helps me feel full as I'm eating, so I'm less likely to overeat. It's giving me those fibers to reduce a blood glucose spike by up to 43%, reducing my insulin spike as well. So it's also giving me gut microbiome health. It's creating more positive microbiome in my gut, less inflammation in my gut. Less inflammation means less of these negative properties happening. You fix it with nutrient food that's good for your body, not junk that people try to sell you. So, what I'm talking about here, Charlie, is that most of the food we have, unless you go out and you get like, I was so excited when I went to Montana. Story time. I'm all kinds of random today. Went to Montana this summer to help my mom, and I found a box because we used to grow our own gardens. We used to grow all our own food. And in the box were heirloom seeds, meaning they haven't been genetically modified. They're like the foods I grew up with 50 years ago. The foods that I grew up with 50 years ago are not the foods that we're getting now. That's what I'm talking about. When you think you're going into the store and getting these natural organic foods that are fixing you, yes, it's helping, but a lot of them are still deficient in things like fiber, phytonutrients, vitamins and minerals, just between soil depletion and not because we're not rotating our crops and all this stuff. Scientists have shown that our raw foods are 40 to 75% less dense in nutrients than they used to be. And that's not even talking about the fiber yet. So, why am I doing this on top of eating food that I prepare at home, eating food that's more organic and whole food? I have one tiny cabinet in my kitchen that is prepared foods, and it's maybe a few sauces, some spices, a few things like that. There is not a lot of, I mean, that's one tiny, I think most people would use it for their spice cabinet, but that's where any canned boxed food is in my home, and that's it. That's the only place for that stuff. One tiny cabinet. It's not like I'm eating a ton of really bad food, and yet I was sick because I still wasn't getting in the nutrients I needed to address all of these things going on in my body. So the system is this tea, which has every vitamin and mineral in it to sustain life. So it's also very highly concentrated. So it has 375 times more chlorogenic acids, which is a component that can actually cross the blood-brain barrier and get nutrients to the brain. This has all of that. It's giving me energy. It's giving me antioxidants. It's giving me anti-inflammatories. It's giving me anti-cancer properties. And all of those things, that anti-inflammatories, help with that inflammation that's causing this disrupted breathing pattern, or they can help with that. So that's what I'm doing. And I do a little bit of intermittent fasting to help keep my insulin levels down. This tea gives me energy, mental clarity, and all those things I talked about. All of that is part of why this has helped my sleep apnea. The second part is that fiber that I talked about, 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers, reducing a blood sugar spike by up to 43%. Now, if you're eating raw organic foods, that's amazing. But understand, in order to get the amount of fiber that scientists are saying that we need to get, you would have to eat a bushel of broccoli before every meal in order to get the proper amounts of fiber. Okay, so do you want to do that? I mean, I would rather have our broccoli be like it was, and so I only had to eat a serving of it, but that's not the world we live in. It's just not. You guys understand that we're not riding horses and walking everywhere. We're driving cars. Our food has changed just as much as our transportation has. So we have to understand how to fill in those gaps, and that's what this system does. So energy, antioxidants, anti-inflammatories, affecting all of those things that are causing my sleep apnea in the first place. But mostly this system is addressing insulin resistance. I talk about the things that are attached to insulin resistance because I want people to understand how important this is to your health. You don't even have broccoli that much. Yeah. The funny thing is, Charlie, and maybe it's because of the modification of broccoli, but I used to love broccoli and I don't anymore. I look at broccoli and it's like, ugh. I don't know why. I don't know why that shifted in me, why that changed. I used to hate spinach, but I eat a lot of spinach now. Um, I've always loved berries. I always loved pears, but I never paid attention to them. But my tastes have changed as I've gotten healthier, right? So, yeah, like just eating a salad before you eat, that can help. But what happens when you're drenching that salad in dressings and all of these other things? Now you're increasing your glucose level. Let's talk about, I do have my ebook out, you guys. Now I added 2 bonus things to it. So it went from 6 to 8, 8 simple steps to manage your insulin resistance. There are things you can do with or without the protocol. The protocol definitely helps, but these are the steps. You can message me for the ebook if you want it. I'm still working on the glitch that's not allowing me to just auto deliver it to you, but we're gonna get that fixed. So fiber first. Every time you eat, you want to get fiber in first. That fiber is going to get in your gut. It's going to start to swell up. It's going to start to activate. And then as you eat things that are full of fructose and glucose, it now has a chance to regulate those so that you're not getting such a huge dose of it from the food that we're eating, even when you're eating unboxed foods, right? So that's this. I have this before each meal. And then the tea a couple of times a day. But if I had to go, like, so I took a year off from travel. I love travel, but I just got so tired this last year that I stopped. But and I'm going to start again this year, but when I'm in planes, and actually in a week, I'm taking a trip to Kentucky to go visit my grandson. I'll drive because I hate airport messes. That's part of the reason I stopped traveling too. But I'm going to make the 8-hour drive. On that drive, how am I going to have broccoli that I can cook up or a huge salad that I have in the drive? I'm not. I'm not. I'm going to bring it along some steak or something that I've cooked up previously. And then before I eat, I'm going to take a packet of my multi-fiber complex. I'm going to drink it down, super simple to mix in water. And then I'm going to eat along the way whatever I want and not have to worry about it. So it makes it simple and sustainable. On meals where I don't add this in, do I want to focus on having in broccoli, spinach, dark green vegetables before I eat? Absolutely. Is okay to fiber daily. Charlie, I don't have a problem with glucomannan, but here's the thing. Fibers all have a different action in the body. The best way to address insulin resistance and blood glucose spikes is to get the sugar, the fibers that actually have been proven to address sugar spikes in insulin. And that's why there's 7 different fibers in here, because it's not a single fiber trying to do the job. It's a complex of fibers that have been scientifically put together to give us the best effect on glucose that we can have. And that's why this will reduce a blood glucose spike up to 43%. And something like these, what's in this one again? I can't remember. Psyllium husk. Wheat dextrin. Okay, so this can reduce a blood sugar spike by about 10%, up to 10%, right? This reduces a blood sugar spike by up to 43%. Which am I going to do? I mean, you can do this, but if you have severe insulin resistance, if you have this problem and you really want to address it, this is what I would do. I would have to do 4 times as much of this and still not get the effects of this because that compound just doesn't happen. It's the combination of fibers in here, plus phytosterols, vitamins and minerals that are actually having this effect on our insulin resistance and our blood glucose. I haven't talked about this for a while. The company now believes in, I mean, not now, they've always believed in the product so much, but we've now been able to partner with a lab so that when you start the system, if you choose to do this, and we appreciate when you do, when you start the system, which daily, this is what it is, right? A tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a pre-meal drink when I eat. You can order an A1C test, a before and after. So at when you start the system, and then after 90 days, you can order this A1C test. It's like $49, and that will give you a better picture of where you are when you start. And after 90 days, has that really changed? Because this actually scientifically has been proven to change your A1C. And we believe in it so much that we have a 90-day money back guarantee. So somebody said, don't buy stuff from people who are just trying to sell things. Well, what if you went in and you said, okay, I'm going to address my insulin resistance, and broccoli should help my blood sugar level. So I'm going to eat this bushel of broccoli before I eat, every time I eat, and my blood sugar level doesn't go down. Does the grocery store refund you for your broccoli? Does the doctor refund you for the medications that didn't reverse your disease? Does the doctor refund you the cost that they had in you getting to them? No, no, they don't. This, if in 90 days your A1C isn't down, your cholesterol panel isn't down, and you're not feeling better overall, you get your money back. That's how important and impactful this is, and that's how much we believe in it. It's so impactful that it's not just a product that's out there. We are one of the only companies with 18 natural food products in the PDR. We have these, both these products are listed in the prescriber's digital reference. So that means there's been scientific studies, there's been clinical studies. The third party at the physician's digital reference used to be the physician's desk reference, and I used to have to look up stuff in that thing every day. They have looked at it and said, okay, this has enough information that we're going to put this in there. We have 18 products, and they don't care. I know you don't care about people for real. Oh wow, that's honey, Diamond. Let's take a moment for you, because you've been really traumatized at some point in your life to feel like no one cares, and that's sad. So I hope that whatever that caused that, no, and they don't care. I know you don't care about people for real. I reread it, and it still doesn't make sense to me. So what it came off to me is, I care about people for real. Thank you. Okay, I did misread that, and I apologize. You have no idea how many people that I've dealt with that are traumatized, that just, go off, and we see it every day. So I'm sorry, Diamond Girl. That was, I misread that. But yes, I do care about people. You guys, I sell less of the product than the people who are up here doing this, like smacking this in the screen and telling you gotta go buy this. I don't do that. Do you ever see me do that? No. I talk about it. I give you information, because in the end, and I have the 8 Simple Steps ebook, because if you can take that and start to get better, that's the biggest thing for me. So I'm going to backstep and say, Diamond Point, thank you for that comment, and I apologize that I misread it. Okay. Stores don't care. They absolutely don't. And you guys, we don't find this in stores. Here's why. Here's why the company did not put this in stores. We actually did put this in like Walmart, Walgreens. But is there any sales associate in Walmart or Walgreens, any of those, that are going to explain any of this to you, that are going to help you understand insulin resistance, how to take this, when to take it, get on the phone with you and help you break down what you might want to change to get better results? They're not. And so people just didn't understand, because we're in this society that wants to just pop a pill every day. And when we just pop a pill and we're like, okay, here's a prescription. Let's see. Most of the prescriptions come with this big old booklet that tells you how to take it, what the negative implications are, what you shouldn't be doing with it. How many of you guys have read that booklet? You don't. You read the little line that says, take this in the morning, take it with food. Hopefully you read the part that says, take it with food, whatever. But you're not, even though they're giving you the counseling in written form, you're not reading it. And how many times does anyone sit down and just really explain everything to you? They don't. Pharmacists can and will if you ask them to, but most of the time you're just not getting those explanations. So what we found is that the best way to address people's health is to actually have someone like me and the people who work with me to be able to actually talk to you and help you. Most people don't understand all the stuff that I look up and talk about. They just understand how this works is by addressing blood sugars and how to help you understand how to work this into your life. And that's fine. So you can find it in my profile link, and it's $5 a day, you guys. That's all it is. Now, a couple of the conversations I had yesterday, they were like, "Oh, that's nothing. I was spending 3 to $400 on stuff that wasn't working for me and all these multiple other things." So one system, $5 a day, 90-day money back guarantee, low price guarantee, quality guarantee. That's how much we believe in this product, and it's actually changed my life. So I will say this on many of my lives. In all honesty, sitting on the other side of this camera, listening to the person who was talking about it when I found it 3 years ago before it started to blow up, I did not actually believe that it would help. In the back of my mind, it was like, this is just another one of those things. But I have this optimistic positivity side to me, and I'm like, but I've tried everything else. I've done the medications, I've done medical medium, I went vegan for a while, I went keto for a while, I did all the stuff, and I wasn't getting better. And I was actually sick and felt like I was dying. And so I'm like, money back guarantee, coaching, quality, I'm going to give it a shot. The worst that's going to happen is in 90 days, I get my money back and I'll say I tried another thing, and there we go. But guess what happened? Month one, I had better energy. I had better mental clarity. I had a number of things going well, but I was so focused on the weight that I was like, I haven't lost any weight. Week 6, I started losing weight. By the 90-day period, my skin tags were gone, my skin discoloration was gone, my mental clarity was better, my blood pressure was getting under control, my A1C had dropped from 7.4 to 6.3, it's now at 5.3. Yeah, so I tried it, and then that's why I'm here talking about it, because I actually used it and found out how well it works. So yeah, get it, try it for a few months. You will see a difference in a few weeks. Yeah, a lot of people do see, and thank you, Donaldo. A lot of people see a difference in a few weeks. So one of the things that I've been working on is a questionnaire that I want to send out to people when they order. And this questionnaire isn't about anything but helping you and I understand where you start out. Because one of the things that happens is as we start to feel better, we forget, like, do I remember how sick I was and how my body felt? I can recall it, but I don't live in the reality of I hurt so much I can't get up off the couch. My feet hurt so bad I don't want to get up and walk. I had a walker and a cane, and it was hard for me to get in and out of my car. And I was embarrassed. And I had IBS that kept me from going anywhere. And if I did go anywhere, I couldn't eat before because I didn't want to have the devastating effects of that. My teeth and gums aren't bleeding. All of that stuff. I don't think about those things daily because I'm not living in that life anymore. Daily, I'm pain-free unless I overwork something, exercise too much. Daily, my mental clarity is better. Daily, I sleep better. Daily, I don't have to worry about my feet swelling so big I can't get them in my shoes. All of that changed by this simple system. So give it a shot and let me know how it goes. And we will talk throughout this time if you choose. Now, if you don't want to talk to me and you just want to do the product and you want to do your life, that's fine. But if you have questions like these people that I've been on the phone with all day yesterday, and you want to know more about, like, okay, um, my blood pressure is getting better, but I'm still suffering with this or that. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a doctor. I'm a real woman who can give you some examples of what I did and what scientists like Dr. Ben Bickman have shared with me that you can do. And that's where I help you. Okay. And all of that's for free. You get a lot of access to that. But in the bottom line, here's the thing. We kind of got off track now, and I appreciate you guys. I love your questions. But let's go back to the sleep apnea. I know that a lot of you said that you learned something new about sleep apnea today, and I'm really grateful that you did, because that's why I do this. And I hope that under this new understanding of sleep apnea and how it's related to insulin resistance, and a little bit about what's causing us to have insulin resistance, has opened your eyes and given you maybe another route to address your health from. So, did anybody feel like they got some of that today? And that maybe your struggles with sleep apnea maybe you feel like there's a better way to address it and that there's hope that you don't have to live like that anymore. Um, because in the beginning, you guys, when I would wake up, and it still happens to me every once in a while, I'll sleep so hard that I wake up not knowing where I'm at. And that's amazing to me because it used to be that I was like awake all night basically and just kind of praying that I got some sleep before the alarm went off in the morning. Now I wake up before my alarm because I actually slept well enough that my body's like, hey, we're rested. Let's get up and work. Okay. But it all started with addressing insulin resistance. I didn't come out to address my sleep apnea. It just happened as I got my insulin resistance under control. Okay, you guys, I'll see you tomorrow. I know I had somebody yesterday ask about migraines. So tomorrow we're going to talk about headaches. We're going to talk a little bit about symptoms. We're going to talk some more about this whole thing. But understand both of these products are helping with all of the underlying mechanisms that can cause sleep apnea. And so just simply adding them today to your system, reducing inflammation, reducing the sugar load, and becoming more insulin sensitive can positively impact your sleep apnea or OSA. So tomorrow we'll talk about migraines and whatnot. And if you have questions or things you want me to talk about, let me know. I'm going to also this weekend look up some things on blood viscosity and insulin resistance and how it impacts it, because there's been a number of women who talk about needing to be on blood thinners, and I would love to dive into understanding that a little bit more and see if there's a link in how addressing insulin resistance can help. And I believe there is, but I want to have some scientific data behind that. Okay. So migraines, head stuff tomorrow, and then we'll see you in the morning. If you're interested in the system at all, use my link. There's a website there. You can go read more about the products. You can see I have the nutrition panels up. I have some success stories in there. I have some FAQs in there. Go do your research and read it. And then if you decide this is what you want to try, use the link, buy it from me. Here's the thing. When you buy from me, it's coming directly from the company because I'm an authorized distributor of the company. When you buy from Amazon, eBay, Walmart, they're not authorized. You're not getting any of the guarantees. The company doesn't even know you've gotten it. We don't know if it's pirated. We don't know if it's expired. And we found a lot of that. So save yourself the time and money, because everyone who said, I bought it on eBay, I bought it on Amazon, they ended up spending at least $100 more a month than they need to. So they went from about $159, $5 a day, to $300. And I don't want that for you. Save your money, get the guarantees, and get the real product that's going to help you address your insulin resistance and have a chance of addressing all these other things that I talk about. All right, you guys, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. I'm going to get some content up and call some people. Have a good one. Thanks for joining me.